let's just help people make more money and keep more of their money and do it with passion. And don't be ashamed of it either.
This is Senator Ruben Gallego of Arizona. In November, he was one of only 4 Democratic senators that won in states that President Trump also won. Now, as the party struggles to find its footing at the start of Trump's second term, Gallego held a voter town hall outside of Phoenix to discuss the administration's plans for Medicaid.
They want us to believe that there's only certain ways you could do things, right? And it has to be to an extreme.
He sat down with WSJ's Eliza Collins to talk about how he connected with voters and what he thinks Democrats need to do to bring them back.
Senator Gallego.
Good to see you again.
Talk to me about who the Gallego Trump voters are and what they care about now.
Number one, the economy, and number two, security. And they both still matter. Now, I think economic reasons are kind of getting even more and more important to them, just because I think there's a bigger sense of desperation. But the reason I think we were able to put the coalition together because we were able to communicate to people like, we're the, office, the Senate candidate that's going to talk about the real needs of your family, that you want economic security, you want to get a job, you want to start a business, you want to buy a home, you want to, make yourself into a rich, prosperous family. Like, we're the people that understand that. And we understand your security needs. You are unhappy about what's happening at the border. You're unhappy about crime in the streets. I understand that. I get that.
What economic policies can Democrats put forward to actually appeal to these groups, and what power do you guys have?
Well, I think a lot of it is because we don't have power, we're going to have to show, right? And so how do you do it? We talk about making sure you have an earned income tax credit, right? Helping people that work, make it a little longer by giving them a tax cut, right? So during, COVID, for example, for 6 months, if you had kids, you were receiving $200 a month per kid. Talking to a lot of families, they remember feeling at least a little ability to just breathe a little. And instead of trying to get very fancy with all these types of economic, programs, let's help people become richer and more, independent and not be afraid of it. There's this problem that does happen with Democrats where we're kind of somehow feel it's wrong to help people be more prosperous. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think we have to own the idea of the American dream also being directly related to your ability to have prosperity. At times, we shy away from that message. And it becomes this nebulous message about justice versus where most people actually care about in this country is the chance to live well. And let's help them live well.
You had a town hall with Senator Mark Kelly.
We're not going to screw over the poor to take care of Elon Musk and his buddies.
This was focused on cuts to Medicaid, which have not happened, but you guys were warning constituents that might be down the road. Can you talk about what you were hearing from these constituents?
Look, I think people are naturally worried. And, while this is, talking about Medicaid, I think for a lot of people, they were coming here to at least get some understanding what's happening in their world because things are getting scary for them.
I feel like we need leaders here.
It seems like Democrats are divided, though, on what to focus on. What we heard today, Democrats are really frustrated. They want you guys to come out swinging.
As long as we're all talking and we're focusing where it is, which is trying to save working class people's ability to have affordable health insurance, we're all winning in that point. There may be a divide among leadership, among this, but there's not a divide among the base of Democratic voters or Democratic Latino voters. They want an opportunity to live the life that their parents had. We're losing a lot of voters because a lot of voters are comparing their current life to what they saw their parents growing up with, right? They saw their parents be able to buy a home, be able to save for college, be able to take vacations, be able to have this level of life that they thought they were going to get because they went to college. They followed the rules, right? They did everything right, but yet they're not making it like their parents made it. And so until we can give them that, we're going to keep losing.
Polling for Democrats is in some places at an all-time low. What are you guys doing wrong?
People can identify it as us being their fighter, right? And I think we had a very good moment that was spoiled. And in Arizona, I stood up and said I was not going to vote for a CR, that was going to go against Arizona.
And CR is the funding bill, Republican funding bill.
Exactly.
Recently passed. So your leader did get some Democrats to join with Republicans to pass this legislation, keep the government open. Your criticism, along with many other Democrats, is that it took away leverage from Democrats.
Sure.
Can you talk about having a leader that did that? I mean, should he stay in power?
Well, I think the bigger problem is right now is that we're talking about him and not talking about Medicaid, right? And so here's the other issue that we found ourselves in by basically getting ourselves involved in a CR in this budget, where the budget should have been focusing on actually what it's going to do. It's going to cut areas that are very important to everyday Americans. That's the kind of stuff we should be focusing on and talking about instead of these internal leadership conversations that really most everyday Americans don't care about. That's the failure of where the Democrats happens, that we ended up in that conversation instead of saying like Donald Trump is cutting, wildland firefighter pay.
So one way both you and Trump won here was with Latino men. Trump made big gains with the group. You've always been pretty supportive of the group, and you were able to hold on to their support.
I mean, I killed it with them, to be clear.
But your rest of your party did not.
Yes, that's
so
right.
What were you doing that they were not?
Well, first of all, one thing I told everybody, I recognized that there was a problem early on with working Latinos going into 2024. They believe, and I've always believed the same, that, you know what, no matter what I do, I can work my way out of this problem. I can work extra hours. I could cut pay here. I'll pick up a side job here. I'll make it. And for the first time, starting around 2023, I heard this like exhaustion really from these men. Like, I don't know what else I can do. And psychologically, like that really clicked on in me because I grew up in that community. I understand that mentality. And I tried to impart that to other people, other campaigns, and I don't think they wanted to hear the truth of what was happening there because it was painful.
When you say other campaigns, I mean, are you talking about the Harris campaign?
Everybody. No, it was everybody. It wasn't just the Harris campaign.
Are Democrats hearing it now? And is Trump still messaging correctly to this group?
I think he is not messaging correctly to this group. I think he's missing the boat. They're right now they're getting pretty teed off because prices still haven't gone down. There's a lot of chaos that they're saying that they weren't voting for. They really did think that if there was going to be any type of deportation, it was going to go after the bad guys, not after their neighbor, not after someone in their family that has been here, is working. They didn't think that it was just going to be this arbitrary stuff that's happening. And again, they're worried because prices haven't gone down. Here in Arizona, cost of living hasn't gone down. It's hard to buy a home.
You have, angered some progressives on immigration. You've voted for some of Trump's nominees. I mean, have you had an ideological shift, or how do you explain?
People want to be mad at me, for example, for voting for Doug Burgum, right? Hopefully I said his name correct, or else I'm definitely in trouble. I can be ideological, or I could worry about the 22 federally recognized tribes that are entirely dependent on federal relationships. And so I need to be able to call up Doug and be like, hey, Doug, this grant just got cut to this community. Why did it get cut, right?
You took a lot of heat from progressives here over co-sponsoring the Laken Riley Act. What is your message to those voters on why you're siding with Republicans, at least on certain things related to immigration?
Well, I'm not siding with Republicans. I'm siding with the American public. And it's very clear, and I said this during the campaign, that there's a vein of where the American public is, right? Therefore, logical border security laws. We have to, as Democrats, be able to say some people should not come here. Some people that are here can't stay here if they do these steps to rectify their situation. And we should figure out how to fix this going into the future. And by the way, if you actually go and talk to the Latino community, and they will tell you the same, because they understand the nuances.
Since taking office, what has President Trump done right on immigration and border security?
I think it was a good idea that we continued the rejection of asylum seekers. The system is broken. Work in a bipartisan manner, we can come up with a system that really does save and protect the core idea of asylum, which I think is a very important part of value of the United States, but at the same time, closes these loopholes that are being abused and have been abused. When I mean abused, like we knew of tourism agencies in other countries that were literally marketing the ability to come to the United States and ask for asylum. And the fact that we never moved to close that loophole as fast as possible is what cost us a lot of votes.
How should Democrats be talking about tariffs?
Well, I think it's important that you talk about it in the way that most people understand. It's going to increase your costs and it's going to cost jobs, which are the two worst things you could do as administration, right? Bringing costs up and jobs down at the same time. In Arizona, it's a double whammy. Since we're a border state, we're much richer because we're a border trade state. And, we know the cost of food's going to go up. We know the amount people are going to lose a lot of jobs because of that. And we're all poor for it. And there's much smarter ways to do this. By the way, you can make, good trade policies and have some tariff enforcements, but you got to do it in a manner that's predictable.
Is there anything I didn't ask you that you think I need to know?
Nah, I think you got it all.